welcome to Auto Animals. This is a 595. And something we need to discuss straight off the bat is it's an Abarth 595. It's a silent H. Think Homer Simpson reflecting on his son. Abarth. So it's an Abarth 595. Remember, this isn't a Fiat 500, this is an Abarth 595. Totally different thing. Now, Abarth, or Abarth if you're English, has been in the habit of making very sporty cars for Fiat for quite some time now. The way to look at Abarth is they are the basically the nut jobs who take a regular, fairly respectable Fiat and turn it into, well, this. Now, straight away you can look at this car and you can tell it's obviously something very special. Obviously, it looks very low slung. It's mean. You've got the nice side skirts, front splitters. The whole package makes it look like a very sporty car. And that's pretty much what it is. It's what they're going for. You'll notice it's got very flared wheel arches, front and rear. It gives it a very wide, very sturdy stance. The whole car's got quite an aggressive body kit. And obviously you've got the obligatory spoiler at the back, although I do question whether or not it's actually needed. There's not many parts that come from the original 500, and if you're a fan of your wheels, your rims, then you'll like these 17-inch alloy wheels that look like an absolute sod to clean. But it's not all looks. Now, it may not look like a lot, but this is where the magic happens. This is the 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol. And just in case you forget what it is you're driving, there is yet another Abarth symbol on the engine. Now, when you look at the 595, there's definitely a few styling cues that definitely make it feel a little bit more special than your average Fiat. You've got the nice chrome or brushed aluminium appearance, although it is plastic. This is brushed aluminium, and the styling cues don't stop there. If we come round the back, you can see we've got the diffuser on the back, as well as this quite unusual but quite distinctive twin exhaust setup in this rather sexy chrome colour. And for those of you who are worried that it's all style and no substance and thinking I can't do anything with this car, you'll be pleased to hear it still has a reasonable sized boot. Right, so when you're in the 595, straight away you've got a very sporty feel, most notably from the rather plush bright red seats in leather. To give you an idea of the shade of this red, the owner has referred to it as donkey dick red. The other noticeable thing is this is a typical Italian car where you need short legs and long arms, of which I have neither. But nonetheless, it is a very plush and comfortable car. They have tried to sneak some leather in wherever they can, but there's no doubt that this is a 500 that's been modified. You've still got the cheap, thin, scratchy, nasty plastics. Even to the point where, for some reason, they didn't feel like they could change the 500 to a 595. Now, I'm not sure if that's intentional or just cheap, but either way, it just feels like it should say 595. Now, one interesting feature that Abarth have put in here is the Alutex gear stick stalk, which can also be found on the door sills. Now, Alutech is supposed to be very much like carbon fibre, but rather than using carbon fibre, it uses aluminium strands to give this, well, aluminium carbon fibre effect. But in all honesty, it just feels like a plastic tube. I'm not very impressed. But despite the cheap attempt at carbon fibre, we have got a leather steering wheel, an actual aluminium gear knob, leather handbrake, leather seats. We've got sat-nav, we've got climate control, we've got one-touch electric windows, we've got an automatic dipping rear view mirror. We have a reasonable stereo, but with a car like this, there's not much in the way of speakers. It will have its limitations. But when you do want to listen to your banging tunes, you do have the steering wheel controls to go with it. And not forgetting, it's also got USB and auxiliary connectivity. We have the token gesture glove box in which you will fit about a pair of gloves, and that's it. We do have door pockets, but in all honesty, you're not going to get much more than a very slim bottle of something in. Even this won't fit. I mean, this is much smaller than a can of de-icer. Something I'm finding a little bit strange is the fact that the height adjustment for the seat is actually next to the handbrake. So let's assume for the moment I'm driving and I go for the height adjustment and up. But of course, while you're driving, you wouldn't be fiddling with the height adjustment now, would you? So it looks the part, but what's it like to drive? Well, let's find out. Now, normally you would just see me reviewing the car, but because my cameraman's so fat, he won't fit in the back seats, so he's joining me up front. Say hello, James.
Hello.
So, first things first, what does it feel like to drive? Well, initial impressions when you first get in is it feels like any other Italian car, especially Fiat's, where you need short legs and long arms. I'm the other way round, so first impression is I'm not that comfortable in here. That's probably my biggest gripe right now. I feel like I'm stretching for the wheel, but if I put my seat much further up to reach it, I'm going to be sitting bolt upright. And on top of that, the seating position seems to be forcing my left leg up against the centre console, and there's nowhere to really rest your foot. There's a very small footrest, but it's hardly worth having. I'm just kind of teetering on the edge of it. Now, it's fair to say with a small car, any small car, is you'd expect visibility to be quite good. You're not exactly driving a tank, you're driving a small city car. They're supposed to be easy to drive, good visibility, good manoeuvrability, good for parking. And I wouldn't have said the 500 is much of an exception, but there is a few things that still put me off. They haven't really changed from the original revised 500. Things like the pillars at the front are still quite chunky. It's difficult to see around them sometimes. There's a very small window at the back, again with very chunky pillars that make it difficult to see past. Behind me here, the B pillars, again, they're a bit chunky and difficult to see past. If I want to look at my blind spot, I really do have to wrench my head around to see. It has just become apparent on some of these country roads just how hard the suspension is. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not rock solid like some cars are, but it is still hard enough that on some of these country lanes you can really feel the road underneath, and it is a bit of a jarring ride. I think this is a car that's probably more home on more modern city and A roads. While country lanes are good fun, I feel like the car's going to be too unsettled most of the time. It almost feels like if you go too fast down a country road that you're going to start skipping and jumping about between the bumps. So I'm going to ask my cameraman how he's getting on with the bumpy roads. How is this affecting your filming?
It's not great. I mean, this is a optically stabilised camera, and it's not doing too well. It is rather bumpy.
Now, being an Abarth, or an Abarth if we're pronouncing it correctly, handling is probably one of the biggest criteria that we should be concentrating on. And it's fair to say that straight away this car feels like something that you can really throw around. It doesn't give up much of a fuss, to be honest. It's level, it's planted through the corners. It gives you a lot of confidence. There's no dead spot in the steering, the slightest movement, and you can feel it straight away. You do get a lot of feedback through the steering wheel, which is nice in a lot of respects, but on a negative side, it feels like I can feel every little jar and jolt through the steering wheel, which might become a little bit tiresome after a while. And I can really throw it around some of these corners. And again, the car just feels completely planted. I don't feel at any point like I need to really put much effort into taking the car around the corner. Generally, you point the car in the direction you want to go and it just sticks. Now, let's be honest, one of the main reasons any of us buy a car like this is the performance. We don't buy it for the practicality. We don't buy it for impressing the mother and father-in-law. We buy it because we want something fast, and as you'd expect, this is fast. So in here we've got the 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol, which, to be honest, they've pretty much used in every car for the last 15 years by the sounds of it. Develops 165 brake horsepower, and in something that weighs about as much as my left shoe, that is a fantastic power to weight ratio. You can knock it down a gear and you can really pull away. Something very characteristic of cars like this is the gear change. It's very much a gear change that just slots into place. Very short shift, it's very definitive, it's very satisfying feeling when you slot it into gear. Now a quick little real world test here. We're on a road, national speed limit. We're in third gear, doing 35 miles per hour. I just want to see how quickly we can get to 70. 30 to 70 is possibly a more real world speed than 0 to 60. So here we go, 35 miles per hour, third gear, and foot down. Oh, something's kicked in. Turbo's kicked in. 48, 50, 55, 60, fourth gear. Now that's interesting because there was a bit of a delay in getting going, and all of a sudden you felt a bit of a kick as the turbo kicked into life. Now, in all fairness, there is two of us in here, and perhaps third gear was slightly too high, but then in second gear, it feels like at 35 miles per hour we might be overdoing it a bit.
I don't know, I expected more from that.
Do you think?
I really did. Well, I wouldn't expect it to have to wait till the turbo kicked in. I mean, there was nothing happened, and then suddenly the turbo kicked in, and then suddenly it flew.
Massive delay. Alright, let's be more fair then. If we drop it down to second gear and do the same thing,
yeah,
maybe there's enough revs.
At the same time, it's probably worth mentioning that Fiat have a history of turbocharging everything in its mother, and it seems that they've just put the regular turbo on it or something.
Right. We're going to do that again. This time I'm going to drop to second gear to give it a bit more revs. So here we go, 35 miles per hour, second gear, straight away, 50, 60. So we actually topped out in second gear, redlined at 60 miles an hour. I think the point to make here is like any small engined Fiat, or any small engined car for that matter, they perform best when you literally strangle them. Okay, so we're going to do another real world test here. I'm going to join the A14. I just want to see how quickly, how comfortably we can join the traffic. Now, to be fair, this is almost a pointless test because it's pretty much a given that if I put my foot down, this thing is going to be hitting 70 way before we reach the carriageway. Although interestingly, I've had my foot down the whole time and we've only just hit 70. And now we're on the carriageway. It feels a little bit delayed, a little bit sluggish at 165 horsepower, but again, to give it the benefit of the doubt, there is two rather heavy people in here. Okay, so we're going to do one more real world test here. I'm going to overtake this lorry. We're currently doing 56, 57 miles per hour in fifth gear. Now, in any more performance orientated car, I wouldn't expect to have to drop a gear, so we're going to try that first. I'm going to put my foot down, overtake, 60 miles an hour, 65 miles per hour, 70 miles per hour. I'm going to tuck in. That was quite reasonable. Not having to drop a gear like that and having that power on tap like that is really good. But again, going back to it being a small engine, the fact that the revs were high to start with, I think, is what makes the difference. Now, on the face of it, the Fiat 500, the Abarth 500, is not a car that you would necessarily associate with motorway cruising, sitting at 70 miles an hour in comfort like you would a Merc or a BMW. And you'd be completely right. It's a bit rough, it's a bit loud. It could be the road surface. It sounds more like road noise than wind noise. On the whole, it's alright. You can get by, you can drive this a distance. For me, I think it was great after a while. I would want something a bit quieter, a bit more refined. Provided the road's smooth, comfort's okay, you don't feel like you're bouncing around too much. But when the carriageway starts to get a bit bumpy, the whole car feels like it's jumping around. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not having to raise my voice much to be heard or anything. It's not terrible, but I just feel like it could be better. It does feel like perhaps they skimped on the sound deadening just a little bit. Now, because we're in an Abarth, and it'd be rude not to, I'm just going to do a quick 0 to 60. So, here we go. I've got sport mode on. 3, 2, 1. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. That's all right. It's respectable. Again, I just feel like there should be a little bit more. God, that was hard. It just feels like there should be a little bit more grunt to this engine, and yet I know there's two of us in here, but even with two people, it just feels ever so slightly lacking.
Does it?
Huh?
Does it?
To me, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I was expecting more for something that should be shit off a shovel, really. It's marketed like that. It's always felt to be like that, but it just doesn't make.
You've got about 3 people in the car, not 2.
Well,
And what's it like compared to the Mini's power, though?
I'd say it's less. The Mini's 180 odd brake horsepower.
Well, 174, so it's
Slightly more powerful.
More, but the car's heavier and bigger.
Yeah, but it just feels like it puts it down much better. I don't know why. And don't get me wrong, this is still a quick car, but it just feels like it needs just that little bit more oomph to live up to its sporting heritage. Now, despite anything I've said about this car, the main thing to focus on is it fun? Do I enjoy being here? Do I want to be here? Do I want to be driving this? And I think the answer is yes, unless somebody offers me something else. This is a fun car, don't get me wrong, I do like it. It's great fun. I can throw it around the corners, it makes a nice pop and a bang from the exhaust, you can put your foot down, you can really have some fun. It's great. But as I say, it just doesn't give me that feeling of that rush that some other cars do, and that's the only thing that's holding me back from saying that I love this car. So, that was the Abarth 595. Now, so the first question is, would I have one? Personally, I wouldn't. And there's 2 good reasons for that. The first being, as I said earlier, it just seems to lack just that little bit more grunt to make it fun enough to have. Secondly, as 6'2", I have never been in so much pain in my shoulders. You have to stretch so far to get to the steering wheel, it is incredibly uncomfortable, and after a day driving this, I don't really want to get back in it right now. If you're shorter than 6'2" and you can get closer to the wheel, that might not be a problem. But on the other hand, if you do want a sporty, peppy little city car that behaves much like an excited puppy on a lead, then this is probably the car for you. So, I've been Adam for Auto Animals. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe. We'll see you soon. I know that you wouldn't get a Fiat 595.
No, but the fact you said this is not a Fiat 595. There's no such thing as a Fiat 595, so of course
Okay, right, okay. Of which I have neither, and to be honest, of which most people won't have either. If you'd like to watch more videos from Auto Animals, there's one just here, I think. There's another one down here. And don't forget to subscribe. About here.